Hey, it's your guy Tyrell back with the interviews. Juventus Spurs, the first leg was amazing. The second leg at Wembley had to be better. 2-2 in the first leg. Juventus had to come out. So would we get that classic away performance? What about Spurs? How would they approach the match? Would they sit and play for a draw? Would they go out and try to win the game? Who would start on the left? Would it be Son? Would it be Lamela? And what about Juventus? How would they cope without Cuadrado and out Mario Mandzukic? Don't worry, here at the interviews, we've got you covered. So on this edition of the interviews, I'm going to briefly break down Juventus against Spurs. So Juventus Spurs, second leg of the Champions League at Wembley. If it was anything like the first leg, we were in for a treat. The first leg saw Spurs go down 2-0, then show their growth, show their resolve, fight back, dominate the game, and get 2 away goals. Now at Wembley, the job was to finish it, get the win, move on to the next round, and that would really make a statement for the Premier League itself and for Spurs and Pochettino and the great work that he's done. And what better time to do it against the Juventus side, who are without Bernardeschi, without Cuadrado, without Mandzukic, and have Dybala and Higuain just coming back from injury. How would they do it? Would Juventus be able to respond from that sluggish performance at Juventus Stadium against Spurs a few weeks ago? We look at the board. We got Spurs in the blue. We got Juventus in the red. Juventus in a 4-3-2-1 apparently to start the match, with Higuain up front, and behind him you had Dybala and Douglas Costa, and midfield Pjanic, Khedira, Matuidi. For Spurs, 4-2-3-1, no real changes. Son starts on the left, Kane up front, Ali, Eriksen, and midfield Dembele, Dyer. What was so different about this game? What really set the tempo well? Both sides looked to press, where Juventus took a 2-0 lead and kind of sat back from the remainder of the game and let Spurs come to them. Here, both sides are pressing. They pressed in different ways. How did they do that? Well, Spurs, the way they did it, they had Kane track Benatia. They had Son go to Barzagli. Out wide, Sandro was obviously pushing a bit forward, trying to provide the width. So they'd have Trippier step out to him. Chiellini was a spare man, and he was able to step forward and play passes, and that ended up harming Spurs down the line. We'll get to that in a bit. And then when we look at the midfield and how it was shaped out, Ali stayed near Pjanic for most of the game, and then the midfield shuttlers and Khedira and Matuidi were responsible for Dyer and Dembele, and that's kind of how that tone was set out. And that really what happens is that Juve were trying to build out of the back. They're trying to play out. It never really worked. Their options were obviously to go out wide. When they went out wide to Alexandro, they had Trippier there. When Douglas Costa moved wide, Davies was tight on him, back to goal, nothing really going there. They didn't really look to lob any balls forward or really play it over the top to Higuain. Perhaps it's because of his fitness, but we didn't see much of that throughout the game, and that was very key. So Juve really struggled to gain control of the game, create chances from open play, and there was really nothing going for them in the first half. You can look at maybe a bit of there was some action where they did retreat a bit. We saw Sandro bombing forward to deliver a cross that Higuain didn't get to. We look at the Douglas Costa chance when they were still in a 4-3-2-1 where he turned Dyer, and Dyer was there. That's Dembele, by the way, but Dyer, we'll use him as Dyer for the moment, turned him and broke into the box. Or it was Vertonghen, turned him and broke into the box, and there was a foul. It didn't get called. Was it a foul? Was it not? We'll leave that to the officials. So that's what happened there. And besides that, Juve didn't really create any chances until after they conceded. But when you look at what Juve did to Spurs, a bit different. They had the front men press the center backs. They had Sandro obviously push out to Matuidi there. No, they had Sandro push out to Trippier. When they look out wide, Costa pushed out there. They had, whenever Dembele tried to drop deep, Khedira followed him. Whenever they had Dyer drop deep, Matuidi followed him. Pjanic on Ali. Eriksen was kind of the spare man there, and that would obviously leave Chiellini to push forward on occasions, but that didn't really happen often. And when you look at how Spurs and where they really found the advantage throughout the game, you have to look at it as, when you look at each positional matchup and and you analyze it, the best option was Son versus Barzagli. Barzagli, a great defender in his day. Here at this time, a bit over the hill. Son, dynamic, could run at you, and that was the plot that Spurs really followed throughout the game. That was the theme. That was the template. In the early minutes, you saw him just run at him. And Barzagli is a great defender, so he always pushed him outside, forced Buffon into a save. There was another chance where he did break forward, and he cut in again, and then he flashed his shot wide. Barzagli never gave him the inside, always forced him out. That was pivotal. That ensured that he never really got a good shot at goal, and he was always looking to flash it wide. And then when we look at the other chances and the other ways that Spurs really got forward, you have to look at it from this angle. It's the fact that Sandro was always looking to push forward, so that was key. And then throughout the game, eventually what Juve did was that they were in a 4-3-2-1, and then without the ball, they dropped into more of a 4-4-2. He would stretch out there, they would shift over, Douglas Costa would come out. But as the game wore on, they became more of a three-man back line, and there was more of the wing backs because they had Costa hanging out wide, trying to stretch the play, and they had Barzagli tuck in and move over. And what happened was that Spurs had more variation on what they wanted to do and how they did it. And basically, what they did was that they kind of tried to force them in. They tried to bypass. Obviously, they were pressed at times, but when Dyer and Dembele were able to drop deeper, and they had runners there was space for the Spurs attackers to really get in between the lines, and that's how they really got their attacks going. There were several occasions where Son picked up the ball on to the outside of Pjanic, ran at goal, got his opportunities, didn't score them, obviously. We know that happened. And then we look at a spell where Eriksen picked up the ball between the lines, ran at goal. That led to Kane running across and having his shot blocked and Matuidi covering it. And then we look at another opportunity where Ali shifted over, and Ali got the ball in between the lines and played it across, and Kane brushed off Chiellini and went on goal, rounded Buffon, didn't score. It was just very, the way that the Juve were pressing, it left space in between the lines, it left space ahead of the Juve backline, and it was a very risky gamble to go 3v or 3v4, however they want to do it. And Spurs found gaps and gapes. Harry Kane, obviously back to goal, he played very well, he linked play, he ran to the channels, he set up options. And then there were times where Sandro was caught up high and Kieran Trippier was able to deliver crosses into the box. You saw the cross that he delivered that fell to Son at the back post. He nodded on goal. Buffon pushed it away. And then when you look at the Spurs goal, it was Trippier who fired the cross into the box that fell to Son that led in. And when you look at that goal, for instance, that again shows you what was wrong with what Juve were doing and how they were getting overrun in midfield. And basically, it's just simple running where Kane drops deep. People are attracted to the ball. Eriksen makes a darting run, will get him out of the way. Behind two midfielders, gets onto the ball there. Then you have Ali, who is there, running across goal. Barzagli tracks him, plays it into him, and then Trippier, unmarked, is able to deliver the cross into the box. Son boggles it, doesn't hit it well, but it does go in. Spurs are up 1-0. How does Juventus respond to that? Well, we get everyone back into their proper position because we have everyone out of position at the moment, and that's not good. But when we do this, we get the 4-3-3 back there. We get what became essentially a back three throughout the game. We'll get that right there. Pjanic never really got a chance on the ball. What happens after that is the fact that Juve go forward and they have to get a goal. You think, how are they going to do that? They don't really have anyone that they could bring off the bench that could really pose a goal threat. How do they get Higuain involved? How do they get Dybala involved? Well, Allegri makes two defensive changes that ended up working miracles. It's very reminiscent of what Carlo Ancelotti did in the Champions League final, where he brought on two fullbacks that were able to bomb forward, and that really changed the game, and that's what happened here. Juve went from a 4-3-1-2 to a 3-5-2 to a 4-2-3-1 in the second half, and what happened was that they brought on Lichtsteiner. Well, first they took off Matuidi and brought on Asamoah, and then they brought on Lichtsteiner, and he went to right back. And what happened was that they were for Benatia, and I thought that was due to an injury, but regardless if it was, it really changed the aspect of the game, because then it became 4-2-3-1, and Spurs didn't know what to do for that time period. And what had happened was, now you have Dybala, who's able to float from flank to flank. No one was really able to pick him up, or they were wondering how to pick him up. And what happened was that Khedira was able to also get into positions where he'd pick up the ball. They didn't know how to press him, where to press him. But the bigger thing was that right now you have Costa, who's kind of trying to come in, and then to the left, then you have Higuain, and then you have Alexandro pushing forward, and he's cutting in as well, so that leaves space for Asamoah to get forward. He delivered a cross to the near post. Sanchez blocked it, then it falls to Dybala. He scuffs his shot. That's one opportunity. A few minutes later, what happens? It's another cross into the box from Lichtsteiner. Khedira is able to break in. Higuain is the first to react to it. He guides his shot into the net. That's 1-1. And then when you look at the second goal, what is it? It's just simple Spurs breakdown. No one knows what to do. They're playing a bit of a high line. What happens here is that it's Chiellini, who's been the spare man throughout the game, looks for the run, basically. And we'll get this back here. They're a bit deeper. Looks for the run of Higuain. He drops off, brings a marker with him. Dybala, no one tracks his run. Dyer doesn't track his run. And then what happens is that because there's a wide man here, Trippier doesn't track his run, doesn't know whether to stay, whether to go, lets him go. Higuain plays a lovely reverse ball in. He breaks free. And that, again, is just the add additional width that they bring into the game. The formation change, the willingness to run forward, the change really shook everything up. Spurs didn't know how to cope. They were able to get crosses into the box. That didn't happen in the first half. They got it in there. And then what happens after that? Juve retreat, and no team is better at this than Juve, especially on this stage. They've done it time and time again. 2 banks of 4, very narrow. How do you break that down? No space in. And how do you break that down? You got your wide players there. Spurs are trying to push forward, obviously, trying to get men forward. They bring on Llorente. They bring on Llorente. They push. Bring on Lamela. They take off Son. Dyer comes off. Eriksen goes deeper. They try to get him involved. They do get a few chances. The diagonal from Eriksen to Son, and that gets crossed in. Chiellini makes a big tackle. Kane hits the post. Son curls an effort that's nodded into his path, inches wide of the net. But besides that, Juventus deserve a lot of credit here. The tactical change in the second half, they made that change. They changed formations throughout the game, but they brought the fullbacks in, got width, delivered crosses into the box, weathered the Spurs storm, dealt with Son. Gonzalo Higuain quiet, but throughout the 180 minutes scores 3 goals, gets 1 assist, the game winner. And when you look at it, Allegri out-coached Pochettino for 1 half, and that made the difference. That's how this tournament works sometimes. Decisive changes in games matter, and finishing your chances obviously makes a difference. And if you don't, it comes back to haunt you against an experienced side. And perhaps that's what Spurs lacked, just the experience. And maybe next season they'll learn from this and come back better and stronger. Whereas Juve move 1 step forward, another chance for Buffon to win the Champions League, and here banged up, struggling, not playing well. It's been the theme of their season. They find a way to get it done. But let me know what you guys think. Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.